The brutal truth about hard work that parents must share. It was supposed to be just another seminar in the quaint little town of Oakwood, a community meeting in an old school gymnasium. But that evening, as the sun dipped low and cast strange shadows on the cracked linoleum floor, something felt amiss. The air buzzed with an electric tension, a foreboding that even the most casual observer couldn't ignore. Something was brewing, and it wasn't just the coffee in the corner. As parents and teens shuffled in, whispers filled the room. "Have you heard about the whispers in the woods?" An anxious mother whispered on the edge of the crowd, her eyes darting toward the rustling ivy outside. "What whispers?" Everyone not in the know leaned in closer, captivated. A child sitting with a flipping notebook couldn't hide their tight grip, knuckles pale as they listened, heart pounding with nervous curiosity. Then, the evening's guest speaker entered. Mark Silvers, a rugged-looking man whose presence commanded attention. He had been dubbed the hard work guru. But the man who walked in with confidence was not the same person he was weeks prior, not after the mysterious incident that sent chills through the town. They said he witnessed something dark in the secluded part of Oakwood, something that unnerved even him. The unease washed over everyone like a thick fog, doubt creeping in their hearts. Could hard work truly unlock the secrets of their future or only lead to something they weren't prepared for? He stood there, gripping the podium, eyes wild, lips just beginning to part when the lights flickered. Gasps filled the room, and in that moment of darkness, hearts raced. Silence enveloped them, broken only by a distant howl that echoed through the walls. The young teens exchanged fearful glances, while parents' expressions shifted from hopeful anticipation to sheer worry. What could this mean? Were the whispers about to lead to a revelation or a reckoning? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the lights flickered back on, Mark's voice broke through the tension. He leaned in, urgency dripping from his words. What if I told you that hard work can sometimes lead to dark places? What if it's not just about the dreams you chase, but the hidden truths you uncover? The crowd leaned in closer, breaths held, the room gripped by an unbroken thread of anticipation. Their minds raced. What truths? Before he could finish, the unmistakable sound of shattering glass echoed from the back of the gym. Panic surged like wildfire. Parents darted toward the sound, hearts in their throats, while teens huddled together, eyes wide with terror. Something or someone lurking in the shadows. What had they stumbled into that evening, and what sinister knowledge did hard work really hold? The night was far from over, and secrets hung thick in the air, just waiting to be revealed. Mark felt a rush of adrenaline as he scanned the crowd, eyes darting from one anxious face to another. The shattering glass had fractured the tension, and now uncertainty seeped into every corner of the room. A mother let out a choked gasp, and a boy's face drained of color. They had all come seeking wisdom, but fear wrapped around them like a suffocating blanket. Stay calm. Mark shouted, his voice slicing through the chilling atmosphere. He debated whether to give in to panic or assert dominance over the situation. He was no stranger to dark places. The woods held truths he wasn't ready to share, not just as the noise quieted, someone emerged from the shadows, a figure silhouetted against the dim light. It was a teenage boy, Jake, breathless and wide-eyed. You have to see this. It's crazy. He stammered, gesturing for Mark to follow him. Where? Mark asked, his heart pounding. There was a collective shift in the crowd as curiosity grappled with instinctual fears. The woods. Down by the old mill. Jake exclaimed, urgency tainting his tone. He turned, leading the way into the unknown. Mark hesitated briefly, then called out, everyone stay here. I'll find out what's going on. He pushed through the crowd, followed closely by a few brave parents and teens who felt compelled to support him. If something sinister was indeed unearthing from the depths of Oakwood, they wanted to be there. On the front lines. As they rushed outside, a shiver danced down Mark's spine. The air was thick with anticipation, each gust of wind whispering questions that remained unanswered. But the stillness that lay ahead was palpable. An eerie quiet enveloped the wooded area just beyond the school. Jake led the group off the well-worn path, branches cracking as they stepped deeper into the woods, a cacophony of crunching leaves underfoot. "It's just up ahead," he called, an edge of hysteria in his voice. As they rounded a cluster of gnarled trees, the moonlight fell upon something unexpected. An old, dilapidated building stood in front of them, hidden beneath a canopy of twisted vines. The structure seemed to pulse with darkness, beckoning yet menacing. "Look!" Jake pointed toward the entrance, where the remnants of shattered glass glimmered on the ground like tiny stars lost in the night. "We found it. We found the place where the whispers started." Mark stepped closer, his heart pounding hard against his ribs. It was just a building, a broken-down mill, but something resonated there, tugging at his instincts. An unspeakable truth danced at the fringes of his consciousness. "Do you hear that?" one parent whispered, voice trembling. The rustling sounds of the night seemed to shift, forming an unsettling chorus that rose and fell with each heartbeat. A flash of movement at the doorway made them go still. A shape darted further into the shadows, quick and sleek. Was it a trick of the mind, or had they stumbled into something much more dangerous than hard work? Mark turned to the gathering, breathless. "We need to find out what this means. We have to know the truth." But he paused, looking down the darkened path that loomed ahead. "Do we dare?" The crowd shifted, uncertainty painted on every face. They were at a crossroads. What lay ahead was a mystery shrouded in fear and darkness, a revelation that demanded to be confronted. As they stood at the brink of this unknown, a nearby howl echoed, chilling them to the bone. Was it a warning? With a determined breath, Mark stepped forward. "Let us go find out, together. Whatever secrets this place holds, let us bring them into the light." As they moved towards the entrance, the air seemed to thicken with every deliberate step. This was just the beginning, and Mark couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. Something was watching something dark, and they were about to uncover far more than they ever anticipated. Mark's breath quickened as he stepped through the threshold of the mill, an unsettling energy humming in the air around him. The others hesitated for just a moment before following, their feet shifting the dust that had settled like a shroud over the decaying floorboards. It felt as if the walls themselves were watching, breathing in sync with their mounting dread. Inside, the moonlight fought through the cracked window panes, casting a ghostly glow. Shadows danced wildly, playing tricks on their minds. Mark could see Jake's eyes darting around, desperate for reassurance to combat his own fear. "Why do we even care about this place?" A man's voice quivered slightly from the back. It was Mr. Sanders, a father with an air of panic settling heavily over him. "What if something dangerous is lurking here? What if it can help us understand?" Mark countered, trying to maintain a measure of control. He turned toward the group, desperate to project strength, a beacon against the gathering storm of uncertainty. As they ventured deeper into the mill, the air grew colder. Mark brushed a hand along the wall, feeling a tingle skitter up his spine. Each broken sound felt amplified, overflowing with the whispers of a forgotten past. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the room, causing everyone to jump, their hearts racing. What was that? A teenager gasped. Fear clouded the group. "Stay back." Mark raised his voice, not entirely sure how to lead them now. He moved cautiously towards the source of the noise, heart hammering. Was it the wind? Or something more sinister? He peered around a crumbling wooden partition, and what he saw made his stomach drop. A shattered mirror lay sprawled across the ground, shards like jagged teeth. But amidst the chaos of glass, something caught his eye, a hastily scrawled message etched along the edge of the wall, just within reach. "Run." I am watching. The words chilled him to the core. Had they been warned away? Was someone or something keeping a close watch on them? Panic surged through his veins. "We need to leave," Mark exclaimed, turning back to the group, his voice trembling. But before he could rally them, a low growl resonated from the darkness beyond, rich and menacing. The rustling intensified, branches cracking, and a cold wind whipped through the open doorway like a harbinger of doom. Without warning, something darted into view. A pair of eyes glimmered in the dark. A dark creature, almost human-like, emerged between the shadows, its posture hunched and predatory. Mark's heart raced, a primal fear rooted in his chest. "Everyone, back now!" Mark demanded, his voice a mixture of authority and fear. They scrambled, forming a barrier against the unsettling figure. Is it following us?" Someone whispered, their voice brittle. The creature's eyes locked on Mark, as if it could sense his pulse hammering, his fear like a beacon. The growl transformed into a harsh snarl, and Mark barely held his ground. He had to think fast. "If it wants us, we have to face it. We can't run forever." But the growl deepened, and the figure advanced slowly, ready to hunt. Just outside the windows, the world was consumed by an unnatural darkness. The trees whispered secrets of their own, and the cries of the night turned into an eerie symphony, undermining their resolve. "Why did we come here?" a parent murmured, voice quaking in disbelief. "Because," Mark replied, steadying his breathing, "the truth is sometimes hidden in places we fear the most." As Mark stared into the creature's predatory gaze, a flash of doubt crossed his mind. What truth was worth this danger? He felt desperation claw at his insides, the weight of the unknown laying heavy. Then, unexpectedly, the creature paused, tilting its head as if considering them. Was it curiosity? Or a warning? Mark's heart raced as he steadied himself. "We need to push through," he declared, heart and mind colliding. As they braced themselves against the horizon of fear, the growl stopped, only the heavy silence remaining. Gathering nothing but determination, Mark took a bold step forward, but an unsettling thought crept in. What was truly lurking in the darkness? They were on the brink of uncovering something that could change everything. Suddenly, just as Mark felt ready to confront the truth, a piercing scream shattered the stillness, sending ice through their veins. What was that? Fear washed over the crowd, like a tidal wave ready to break them apart. Mark's world tilted again, reality blending into chaos. No going back now. They would have to face whatever secrets this night held, whether they wanted to or not. Were they the hunters or the hunted? Only time would tell. The scream hung in the air like a noxious fog. Mark's mind raced wildly, grasping for any semblance of control, but chaos clawed at his thoughts. Shadows around him felt alive, shifting like dark specters, and every creak of the old mill echoed with the promise of despair. What was that? Someone repeated, panic spilling from their lips. The tight grip of fear tightened as they huddled closer, whispering frantic questions that spiraled without answers. Where did that sound come from? Was someone hurt? Or worse? Mark forced himself to focus. Stay together, he barked, loud enough to cut through the rising panic. He scanned the room, fighting the instinct to flee. We need to find out what happened. Feeling the weight of anxious stares, he moved towards the source of the scream. With every step, the darkness seemed to recoil, almost as if the shadows were a living entity, eager to snatch them back. The others reluctantly followed, their footsteps hesitant, echoing off the cracked, wooden walls. The mill was a maze of old machinery and forgotten tools, remnants of what had once been a vibrant workspace. Now everything felt cursed, the past lurking in every shadow. Mark reached another corridor, his breath hitching. At the end, faint light flickered. Is someone there? He called out, his voice trembling. No answer came, but the echo of his question lingered, bouncing back to him like a taunt. Suddenly, from behind a rusted machine, a figure crawled out, back hunched and frantic. It was a girl, Jenna, barely visible in the dim light, her face covered in grime, eyes wide with terror. Mark's heart sank at the fear painted on her features. "Help!" she gasped between shaky breaths. I saw it. It's in there." "What did you see?" Mark urged, moving closer, swallowing his own rising panic. "Where?" "In the storeroom," she stammered, barely able to form full thoughts. "There's something alive." It was dark, and it had red eyes just like Mark felt a chill slice through him as Jenna's words echoed in his mind. The remembered glimmer of the creature's eyes from moments before ignited a flood of dread. A wave of unease swept through the group. "Maybe we should just go," someone suggested, a hint of desperation threading their tone. "No," Mark said sharply. "We can't leave without knowing what's happening. We could miss a chance to find answers or worse, leave someone behind." He took a deep breath, steeling himself against the creeping dread. "Let's check the storeroom. But stay close." As they crept through the winding corridors, the oppressive atmosphere thickened. Every flickering shadow felt like leaden hands grasping for their ankles, pulling them away from safety. Mark glanced at the others, their faces pale, eyes glossed with fear. The night was moving forward, swallowing them whole. They reached the storeroom door, its old hinges creaking mournfully as Mark pushed it open. The scent of decay punched them in the face, thick and rancid. Dim light flickered inside, casting jagged shadows on the walls. "What is that?" Jake gasped, eyes widening as they landed on a bizarre shape in the corner, a mound of discarded clothes or something more sinister. A shriek escaped Jenna's lips as the figure shifted. Mark's heart raced, the blood pulsing in his ears. "Back! Everyone back!" He shoved the group towards the hallway as the figure emerged from the darkness, revealing itself to be a distorted mimic of human form, twisted and foul. Its eyes glowed red, locked onto them with an intensity that pierced through the terror surrounding them. "Mark!" someone cried out, panic surging, voices blending into a chaotic crescendo. "Run!" Mark managed to shout, and the group exploded into movement, racing back down the unforgiving corridor, footsteps pounding against the wooden planks. But as they sprinted, Mark felt that primal fear tugging at him. This was not just about escaping anymore. He couldn't shake the feeling that the truth awaited them beyond the thresholds of their terror. Just as they emerged back into the larger room, a loud crash erupted behind them. The creature was free, its guttural growl echoing like an impending storm. The group's screams filled the air as chaos erupted once more. "There's no going back," Mark sputtered, urging them towards the exit. In their retreat, a strange question nagged at him: what drove this creature into the light? What power did it hold that could shatter the boundaries they had so desperately sought to protect? The terrible urgency of the moment wrapped around him like a vice, and he felt his resolve erode as their escape plan crumbled beneath the weight of dread. As they barreled through the door, a terrifying revelation swept over Mark: whatever hunted them wouldn't stop until it found its prey. With frantic footsteps and the beast's growls echoing behind them, the reality hit hard: they weren't just escaping. They were stumbling into greater danger than they had ever imagined. What awaited them outside? Was there truly a way out of this nightmare, or had they awakened something far darker than themselves? The night air outside hit them like a blast from an icy furnace, and the stale scent of the mill seemed to cling to their clothes, a testament to the horror they were escaping. Mark glanced back at the door moments before it slammed shut, sealing the fate of the creature behind them. The echoes of its growls faded, but fear gnawed at the edges of their minds. "Keep moving," he shouted, darting into the dense woods just beyond the mill. The moon hung low in the sky, barely filtering through the tangled branches above. The darkness felt alive, crawling against their skin, carrying whispers of panic. Jenna stumbled, and without thinking, he grabbed her arm, pulling her up. "Did you really see it?" he asked, urgency lacing his tone. "Is it still coming after us?" Jenna's breath came in jagged gasps, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she shook her head. I don't know, it was so fast and so twisted. It looked like it was hungry. Hungry. The word lingered, heavy and foreboding. Mark looked around at his friends, disoriented and terrified, straining to listen for any sign of pursuit. We need to regroup. Get to higher ground, maybe we can see what we're dealing with. The group forged deeper into the woods, hearts pounding in synchronization with their footsteps, each rustle of leaves amplifying their collective anxiety. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, and Mark's mind raced with possibilities. What if that creature was not just a monster? What if it was something worse? Something connected to them, lurking in the shadows of their own lives. Why did it come for us? He thought aloud, glancing back at Jenna, hoping for a clue in her wide, frightened eyes. We didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter, she murmured, the quaver in her voice betraying her resolve. We're still here. We need to survive. Her words pierced through his fog of fear, igniting a glimmer of stubborn hope. They finally reached a small clearing, littered with rocks and thick brush. Mark motioned for everyone to stop. We'll catch our breath here, then figure out our next step, he decided, attempting to mask his uncertainty with authority. As they huddled, catching breaths filled with cold air and palpable dread, Jake's phone buzzed. Everyone abruptly turned, eyes wide. There's no signal, he said, disappointment smoothing over his features. But I've got this. He pulled out a small flashlight, flicking it on. The beam illuminated the surrounding darkness, but the shadows only seemed to deepen. Jake, we don't need light. We need to stay quiet, Mark cautioned, but it was too late. The moment the light pierced the darkness, it drew their attention, a spotlight on their fear. A snapping branch echoed behind them, sharp and sudden. The group froze, faces ghostly pale, tension coiling tight in the air. All dying breaths went silent, and then came a low growl. It was closer this time. Go. Now. Mark shouted, and they scrambled to their feet, adrenaline propelling them into the woods once again. But this time, the path was unfamiliar, tangled roots tripping them up, the darkness closing in as if it had a mind of its own. Mark, what if it circles us? Jenna's voice broke, filled with panic. It doesn't matter. Mark yelled over his shoulder. Just run. Behind them, the creature snarled, a deep, bone-chilling sound that wrapped around their hearts like icy chains. It was hunting them, he felt it in his bones. The dread that had settled into the pit of his stomach morphed into a gnawing panic. As they rounded a thicket of trees, Mark realized they were veering off the path. They had to find the road, the way back to safety. But the woods pulled at them, disorienting and treacherous. Every sound amplified, leaves rustling, creatures scuttling away, breathless whispers filling the void of their escape. Do you think the stories about the mill are true? Jake whispered, his voice trembling, barely audible above the cacophony of their flight. What stories? Mark asked, glancing at him fearfully. About the sacrifice, and the thing they created, Jake said. They said it eats fear. A shivering silence swallowed them as the implications dawned on him. This wasn't just a creature but a manifestation of their collective dread. How had they awakened it? And worse, how could they silence it? Then they heard the unmistakable heavy thud of footsteps behind them. A chase was on. With every frantic glance back, Mark's heart pounded harder. The lights of the town flickered in the distance, a beacon of hope, but it felt so far away. Could they reach it in time? Just then, Jenna stumbled again, this time falling to the ground. I can't do this, she cried, fear riddling her voice. Mark's heart sank. We have to help her. But panic thrummed through the group, threatening to unravel their resolve. They were teetering on the brink of despair, and Mark had to act fast. This was their moment to confront their deepest fears or risk being consumed. A flash of determination ignited within him. Together, he urged. We can't leave anyone behind. Let us face this thing. And just as they prepared to turn back, a low snarl resonated through the air, snapping the group into focus. This was it, they were about to confront the darkness that had followed them all along, but would they be prepared for the truth hidden within the shadows? What would they discover once the creature was finally confronted? With a fierce determination etched on his face, Mark reached back for Jenna, his fingers brushing against her trembling hand. He felt strength seep into her grip, a reminder of their shared fear and mutual fight for survival. The growl erupted again, echoing like thunder, sending shudders through the forest. They would either rise together or be swallowed by the terror hunting them. "We can do this!" Mark shouted, his voice cutting through their dread like a sharp blade. "Stay close." Jenna nodded, her eyes glistening with newfound resolve. A glance at the others revealed a similar fire igniting in Jake and Sarah. They were all terrified, but they had a choice: fight or succumb to the shadows. As they put one foot in front of the other, the underbrush crunched violently beneath them. Each rustle sounded ominous, break branches snapping like fragile bones. Tension coiled around them, thick and suffocating. "Back to the mill," Jake urged, breathless with fear. "It's our only chance." "No. We can't go back there," Jenna shouted, her voice quaking. "It's waiting for us." "Then what do we do?" Sarah's voice faltered, a flicker of fragility amidst the chaos. Mark glanced towards where the lights of the town flickered like distant stars. "If they could only make it there. We can head towards the road," he shouted, the urgency pressing down on him. "We just need to keep running." The creature's growls grew fainter then louder, as if it played a game of cat and mouse, taunting them in the darkness. Mark's heart raced with every thump and creak of branches above. It was out there, prowling, its breath a chilling reminder that they were still very much in danger. "Run!" Mark yelled again. The words ignited something inside him, not just urgency, but a fierce hope. The night was their enemy, but if they stuck together, maybe they would find a way out. They pushed on, panting, weaving through trees as something glimmered in the corner of Mark's vision. He looked closer, noticing the outline of an old stone wall, half hidden by the curtain of night. "There." He pointed towards it, his voice echoing with adrenaline. "It could be a way out. We can climb." "They'll see us," Jake protested, freaking out. "Then we have to be fast." Mark felt fear wrap tighter around him, still focused on their collective goal. They had to plunge into uncertainty together. As they neared the wall, a chilling breeze whispered through the trees, sending a wave of goosebumps crawling over Mark's skin. He could sense the dread boiling over with every heartbeat, gnashing teeth just behind them. The growling noise was growing louder again, and a flash of something pale darted beyond his peripheral vision. "Quick! Up!" Mark shouted, and they scrambled against the rough stones. Just as Jenna slipped and caught herself on a jagged edge, the thing was there, its monstrous form emerging from the shadows. The night seemed to dim around them, a heavy blanket of claustrophobic darkness. Mark hefted Jenna up, reaching for Jake while the creature lunged toward them. The beast was more grotesque than he imagined: twisted limbs, glowing eyes ablaze with hunger. "This way!" he shouted, leaping over the wall, his heart hammering as he pulled Jenna up to join him, but as they all tumbled over, something sinister clawed at Mark's thoughts. What if climbing the wall was the wrong choice? What lay ahead in the darkness? With their backs against the wall, they found themselves in an eerily silent alley, the buzz of fear replaced with a stillness that was even more unsettling. Was something else watching them now? Or had the creature been too scared to follow? "Did we lose it?" Sarah panted, still shaking. I don't know," Jake stammered, eyes darting. In the tense silence, Mark struggled to find the words. There was more than just fear that drove them. There were secrets buried deep beneath, regret and guilt, pulsating like a heartbeat in the shadows. Then he caught movement at the far end of the alley, a shape, coiling like a serpent, waiting in the dark. Eyes glistened, radiant as the lunar glow. Whatever it was, it had drawn them in. "What the hell is that?" Jenna whispered, her voice trembling. Mark's stomach dropped, realization washing over him like ice water. It wasn't just a creature. It southed this place. We awakened something far worse. The night closed in around them once more, and as they prepared to step deeper into the darkness, he remembered the stories, the ones that had haunted their childhood. Secrets of blood, sacrifice, and a curse that may never let them go. Before he could utter another word, the shape lunged forward, revealing its monstrous form, hungry and ready to sink its teeth into their fears. And just before they could turn and flee again, a terrible truth washed over Mark. What if this creature was only the beginning? What if the real horror lay not in the shadows, but in the very essence of their own lives? As panic surged through him, Mark felt the icy grip of desperation tightening around his heart. They had to make a choice, and soon. But what choice was left when facing the darkness from which they came? The silvery shape lunged with a piercing shriek, narrow jaws snapping at the air where Mark had just been. A chill shot down his spine as he ducked, narrowly avoiding the monstrous teeth that glimmered in the pale light. "Run!" he yelled, pushing Jenna ahead as they bolted deeper into the alley. The air was thick with dread, each breath feeling like a weight on his chest. They raced forward, the sound of pounding feet drowned out by the roar of their hearts. Behind them, the creature howled, a sound so spine-chilling it made the hairs on Mark's neck stand on end. They barreled through the darkness, the pale shape viciously pursuing them, just a heartbeat away. "This way!" Mark shouted, veering sharply left into a narrow passageway strewn with debris. His instincts screamed at him. The walls felt as if they were closing in, but he had no choice but to keep moving. The group stumbled into a dead end, a brick wall towering high above them. Panic swept over Mark, his breath quickening as he turned back to face the creature, now looming just a few feet away. It was worse than he initially feared. Its translucent skin stretched taut over its sinewy muscles, giving it an almost skeletal appearance. Eyes like burning coals pierced through the shadows, feasting on their terror. "Where do we go?" Sarah cried, her voice rising in desperation as she pressed against the wall as if it could somehow shield her from the darkness. "I don't know," Mark hissed, feeling trapped. The air pulsed with danger, thick and suffocating. He needed to think, but all he could hear was his own ragged breathing and the creaturesque growl, a deep rumbling that sent vibrations through the ground beneath them. Jenna stepped closer, her expression tense. "Mark, we have to do something. We can't just stand here." He glanced around wildly, searching for anything that could help them escape. An idea sparked in his mind. "Maybe we can climb." "Climb?" Jake said incredulously. "There's nothing to climb on." "Look." Mark pointed to a rusty fire escape near the edge of the alley. It was old and creaking, but it might be their only chance. "We can reach it if we hurry." With no time to waste, they surged toward the fire escape, their terror driving them. Mark reached for the first rung, the metal cold beneath his fingers. He pulled himself up, adrenaline pumping through him. Jenna followed, her eyes wide with fear but fierce resolve shining through the uncertainty. But just inches from safety, the creature's roar boomed, echoing in the alley. It sprang forward, faster than he expected, jaws snapping at the air behind them. "Go! Go!" Mark ordered, and they pushed higher, scraping their hands over the rough metal as they ascended. Just as they reached a landing, the creature collided against the fire escape with bone-rattling force. The entire structure shook violently, sending Jenna teetering. Jake grabbed her arm, pulling her back just in time. Mark's heart raced as he turned to see the creature clawing at the metal with sharp, lethal talons, its eyes blazing with fury. It was relentless. "We can't stay here," Sarah cried out, petrified. "It will find a way up." They were trapped, the city lights below feeling so far away, each glow a mocking reminder of safety. "We need to get to the roof," Mark shouted over the din of growls, his voice strained with urgency. As they climbed higher, the fear became almost palpable in the stillness above. They reached the top of the fire escape and stepped onto the rooftop. The moonlight bathed the area in an eerie glow, casting long shadows that danced around them. "Quick, find something," Mark urged, scanning the rooftop for anything he could use as a weapon. But as they frantically searched, he heard a low growl beneath their feet, echoing even louder than before. "What is happening?" Jenna whimpered, her demeanor shifting from fierce to terrified. Mark looked down to see cracks forming in the rooftop, the creature-esque growl merging with a strange, ethereal hum that sent shockwaves through the surface. As the ground trembled, the shadows seemed to shift, pulling toward the edges like a tide retreating from the shore. "Get back!" he yelled, realizing too late what was happening. A dark, swirling mass began to rise from the cracks, tendrils of shadow reaching up like hands seeking their next victim. They had awakened something ancient and furious. Something that the stories had failed to mention. A primal force that was awakening, furious at their presence. As the shadows loomed closer, Mark felt the weight of despair. How could they fight what they didn't understand? "We can't let it take us, whatever it is," he shouted, summoning every ounce of strength. But the darkness was hungry, eager to consume them whole. With the vortex of shadows swirling tighter, the group formed a circle, desperate yet united. Each of their eyes reflected a blend of determination and fear. As tendrils of dark energy lashed out at them, Mark braced for impact. They had to make a stand, not just against the creature, but against the very force that had summoned it. Whatever lay ahead demanded courage they weren't sure they possessed. What if they were more than just victims of a nightmare? What if they were the key to breaking a curse far older than they could imagine? In that moment of uncertainty, Mark locked eyes with Jenna. A glimmer of belief ignited within him. Together, they would either face the abyss or fall into it. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, and a deafening roar erupted from the depths. Every heartbeat counted as the darkness closed in, and Mark braced himself for the impossible choice looming before them. Would they fight, and risk everything, or do nothing and be consumed by the shadows that sought them? The fatal moment was upon them, and one decision could alter everything. The shadows crashed against them like an unforgiving wave, a suffocating darkness that threatened to consume their very essence. Mark clenched his fists, heart racing, the wind howling in his ears like the cries of lost souls. They were at the edge, teetering on the brink of despair. "Stay together," he shouted, though doubt crawled up his throat. Jenna and the others huddled close, eyes wide with horror as the shadows lashed out, their phantom limbs flickering like angry serpents. Each strike sent splinters of fear through Mark's chest, but he fought against it. The creature below continued its assault on the fire escape, a cacophony of metal groans and pained growls. Mark felt the vibrations resonating up through the rooftop. It was a relentless reminder that escape was impossible if they didn't stop what was happening beneath their feet. "We can't let it win. We need to push it back," he cried out, grasping the nearest object, a rusted metal pipe that lay discarded near the edge of the roof. He swung it experimentally, the weight feeling heavy with responsibility. "That thing down there might be the least of our problems," Jake yelled, pointing at the swirling mass. Tendrils of darkness seemed to pulse, boiling up from the cracks like angry smoke, as if it was aware of their struggle, feeding off their panic. Mark took a step forward as Jenna grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. "What if we fight twice?" she suggested, her voice trembling but determined. "Distract the creature and break the spell. There has to be a way to fight it back." He nodded, a wave of inspiration surging through him. "If we break its focus, if it's threatened, maybe the shadows will retreat." Sarah grabbed a piece of loose slate from the rooftop. "Let us hit it with everything we can find." They scrabbled around, quickly collecting whatever they could use: stones, broken tiles, chunks of debris. As Mark prepared himself, adrenaline coursing through his veins, he felt a bond with his friends, a shared will to fight. Each of them carried a flicker of hope despite the overwhelming odds. "On three?" Mark suggested, stealing a glance at Jenna. She nodded, resolute, her expression fierce against the encroaching darkness. "Ready? 1, 2, 3. They hurled their makeshift weapons into the swirling abyss, their shouts mingling with the roar of the creature and the angry hum of shadows. They couldn't let themselves falter. The moment their projectiles struck, the shadows screeched, twisting violently. The darkness sputtered as if wounded, a frenzy of disarray pulsing through the mass. Mark felt a spark of encouragement. Perhaps they had struck a nerve. Again. Throw everything. He urged, throwing another slab of asphalt like his life depended on it. But just as the shadows recoiled, a figure emerged from the swirl, an elongated shape, fused with the darkness. It wasn't just any creature, it was a grotesque version of the entity they had encountered earlier, merging with the shadows in a horrifying fusion. Mark's heart sank. It was more than he imagined. Could they really stand against this? Despair clutched at him, but rage ignited a fire in his chest. Facing this insatiable monstrosity brought forth a clarity within him. He remembered the tales of old stories where light had vanquished darkness. We are more than this. We can fight. Mark shouted, rallying his friends. With renewed strength, they hurled stones and debris at the monstrous figure that emerged from the shadows, each throw a declaration of defiance. Then Mark saw it faint but flickering, a glowing seam in the darkness, a crack that pulsed like a heartbeat. That's it. He yelled, pointing. If we can reach that light, we might break whatever binds this creature. His friends followed his gaze, fear turning into courage as they regrouped, redirecting their efforts. Mark felt the weight of desperation fall away, replaced by a singular goal. They had to aim for that glimmer. With determination, they charged forward, ready to fight against the shadows, against the creature, against the very darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. But the tendrils lashed out, feral and wild, attempting to ensnare them as they pressed on. As they edged closer to the light, the creature roared in anger, and the shadows coiled tighter around them. Mark could feel it, the choice was slipping away. They had to leap forward, and with that, as they surged ahead, moments from either destruction or salvation, a chilling howl filled the air, and darkness surged with renewed intensity, ready to engulf everything in its wake. Would they find their way to the light, or would they be lost forever to the malevolent shadow? The answer flickered, just out of reach. The shadows recoiled, their grip momentarily loosening as Mark and his friends surged toward the glowing seam. Each step felt like a desperate plunge into the unknown, adrenaline surging through his veins. Fear danced at the edges of his mind, but a spark of hope glimmered brighter, driving him onward. Faster! Jenna shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The swirling darkness hissed like a wounded animal, tangling around them, but they pressed ahead, hearts pounding in unison. Just as they reached the edge of the light, a thick tendril shot from the shadows, wrapping around Mark's ankle. Panic flashed through him as he stumbled, dropping to his knee. No! I can't stop now. Jenna pivoted to help him, but a wave of darkness surged toward her, snarling like a beast ready to feast. Mark grabbed the pipe he had wielded earlier, swinging it with all his strength, of desperation fueling his actions. He connected with the tendril, the metallic sound ringing like a battle cry, pushing the shadows back for a brief moment. Get to the light! Jake yelled, grabbing Jenna by the arm. They both leapt toward the pulsing glow just ahead, while Mark wrestled against the shadowy bindings threatening to drag him under. But in the midst of the chaos, the monstrous figure emerged from the depths of shadow, a nightmarish form twisted in pain and anger. Its grotesque face twisted into a haunting grimace. Eyes, deeper than the void of space itself, locked onto Mark, and he felt a chill clawing at his heart. Face your fears, little heroes. It boomed, voice echoing like thunder across the rooftop. You think you can defeat me? I am the darkness that exists within you all. Those words cut deep, they were not mere taunts but cruel reminders of their worst fears. Mark shivered but fought back, pushing the weight of despair aside. That's not true. We are stronger than you. He hurled the pipe at the entity, and it sailed through the air, slicing through the shadows. It struck true, sending a shattering crack through the creature's facade, but it barely flinched. It only laughed, a low, mirthless sound that reverberated through the air, chilling them to their core. Mark looked back at his friends, determination etched on each of their faces. We have to keep moving. It's weakening. As they reached the edge of the light, something unexpected erupted from within him, a rush of energy, a blinding flash that surged through the air. The glowing seam flickered and pulsed, resonating with their intensity. "Push together!" Sarah shouted, gathering all her strength into one punch against the thickest part of the shadows. When her fist connected, a burst of light exploded from the seam, illuminating the rooftop with blinding brightness. A wave of heat washed over them. The shadow creature recoiled once again, shrieking as the light exploded outward, scalding its dark form. But just as hope surged, a roar tore through the night. The shadows twisted violently, conspiring against them. "You can't escape. You'll pay for this insolence." The retreating light sparked uncertainty. Did they really have a chance? Mark turned to find Jenna's eyes sparkling with courage as she urged him to move toward the crack. "Now, all together!" Mark commanded, feeling the raw energy swell inside as they joined hands, an unbreakable circle aglow with their combined spirit. A surge arose, a powerful force against the encroaching darkness. They pushed, not just physically, but with every ounce of faith they had in one another. The crack widened, glowing more fiercely, pushing back against the darkness. But a feathery tendril lashed out one last time, cutting through their bond, severing the connection. Mark gasped as Jenna staggered back, eyes wide in disbelief. "Jenna!" He shouted, instinctively reaching for her, but the darkness surged, threatening to snatch her away. Their hopes evaporated like mist in daylight, and with a frantic lurch, they were left teetering on the edge once more, caught between the pull of the monstrous void and their flickering chance at salvation. Could they reform their bond before it was too late? Would they lose one of their own to the abyss? The questions hung in the air, thick and heavy as the shadows loomed ever closer. The darkness felt oppressive, almost alive, as it twisted in on itself, seeking to engulf Mark and the others completely. Their collective breath quickened, fear threatening to bind them each in despair. But in that moment of chaos and uncertainty, they knew they had to fight, all or nothing. "Jenna! Hold on!" Mark shouted, desperation slashing through him like a knife. He could see her struggling, caught in the shadows creeping closer, but a flicker of resolve glimmered in her eyes. "I'm okay. Just push." Jenna's voice rang out, filled with determination, but the creature's grasp was tightening, a grip that turned hope into dread at every moment. Mark felt a surge of energy knotting deep inside him, something primal and strong. "Together!" he bellowed, his voice booming over the howl of the shadows. "We can't let fear beat us. Remember what brought us here. Remember what we are fighting for." As if in response to his rallying cry, the group instinctively gathered around him, their hands reaching for one another, clenching tightly. Each grip ignited their unity, sheer determination resonating like a pulse through their shared circle. Jenna, Jake, and Sarah, all of them fueled the flame of courage, offering each other unyielding strength. The shadows writhed, furious, sensing the power of their solidarity. But Mark stood firm. "We won't let you take us. We're more than just fear." With a furious roar, Mark surged forward, focusing on the crack, the glow beckoning like an oasis to the weary soul. "Push!" He felt the others moving with him, forming a living shield against the encroaching darkness. Their combined voices rang out, a single fervent chant, "We are not afraid." The shadows screamed as their words filled the air, echoing and weaving their strength, wrestling against the insatiable void. "Light! Feed off our light!" Sarah cried, her voice steady with conviction. And just like that, the beam erupted louder, spilling warmth over the rooftop as if the sun itself had broken through the night sky. The cult of darkness hesitated, feeling their power wane in the luminous pull of unity. Shadows danced frantically, reaching for them, grasping for whatever ounce of fear still lingered. "Together! Now!" Mark guided them, their hands still connected, feet pounding rhythmically against the rooftop in sync with every burgeoning pulse of light. They pushed with all they had, every ounce of resolve turning into living energy directed toward the widening crack. The shadows shrieked and convulsed, splitting apart at their seams, losing grip on the earth. No. You cannot do this. It was the creature's voice, a warped echo filled with anguish and fury. But they pressed on, hearts beating as one, refusing to relent. The beam of light grew brighter, engulfing them in waves of warmth, clarity beginning to penetrate the fear. Just when it seemed they might fail, an explosion of luminescence unfurled from the crack, stretching its rays across the void, banishing the shadows away with blistering intensity. Then it happened, a shattering reverberation, a profound release. The light erupted like a star being born, washing over them. Blinding and reclaiming. The creature howled in despair, a sound of furious rage that spiraled into the night, but the waves of light collided, consuming the darkness. Mark felt warmth expand in his chest, flooding his veins. They burst through like sunlight streaming through heavy storm clouds, connected by bonds forged in fear, rising above the shadows. Each of them a flickering flame amidst limitless darkness, fighting together until the very last shred of dusk was swallowed whole, and then silence. The world around them began to shift. A soft wind swept through, carrying away remnants of the oppressive night, leaving in its wake an ethereal calm. No growls, no whispers, just the sweet breath of dawn awakening as the last remnants of the creature dissolved into nothing. "We did it," Jenna breathed, her voice awash with disbelief. "We really did it." Mark turned, eyes meeting those of his friends, a wave of joy flooding through him. They had faced the abyss and emerged from it, transformed. "We faced it together," he stated, hope blooming at last in their hearts. Each of them stood taller, newfound purpose etched in their eyes. They found themselves before the desolated street of Oakwood, basking in the light of a new day. Gone were the whispers, the shadows that haunted them. "We're free!" Jake exclaimed, voice trembling with joy, uncertainty replaced with a flicker of relief. With the mill now behind them, a new understanding settled over the group. They had faced their darkest fears and found strength where they thought none existed. They looked at one another with this unspoken bond, a recognition that they were warriors in their own right, capable of overcoming anything. "From now on, we'll share what we learned," Jenna said, determination etched across her features. "Not just about hard work, but about facing what lies deeper, that together we can fight the darkness." Mark nodded, pride swelling within him. They would share this truth with others, guiding their community beyond fear and into the light. The whispers that had once haunted them would transform into tales of courage and hope, tales that would empower others, and as they stood together, hand in hand, overlooking Oakwood, they realized they weren't just kids facing the unknown anymore. They were the light struggling against darkness, ready to shine for all. "Let us go home," Mark said softly. And as they walked away from the shadows, the dawn broke brightly against their backs, a beautiful symbol of everything they had overcome. The creature was gone, but the night had forged a resilience in them. A reminder that with unity, courage, and friendship, they could face the brutal truth of hard work and emerge victorious. Now, it's your turn to carry this story forward. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Every interaction matters in helping us grow this community. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending, because every voice counts. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see what true courage looks like. Your support means everything. Let us spread the light together.